So with equanimity, there's no opposing or controlling or demanding of reality. And when I was thinking about that, I got reminded of a cartoon that's recently kind of gone viral, where you have a demonstration going on in the mall, and it's being led with a monk who has a megaphone, and he's saying, "What do we want? Mindfulness. When do we want it? Now." He's so demanding. Anyway, so that's not equanimity. So equanimity really gives us this capacity to respond to the world that's in front of us in a way that is full with heart. And one of my favorite descriptions of it is a heart that's ready for anything. A heart that's ready for anything. It's a heart that is so open and steady and trusting of life that it can respond in a beautiful way to what's in front of us. So one of the meditations that I've always been drawn to is called duck meditation, and I'd like to share that one with you. Now we are ready to look at something pretty special. It is a duck riding the ocean 100 feet beyond the surf. As he cuddles in the swells, there's a big heaving in the Atlantic, and he's part of it. He can rest while the Atlantic heaves because he rests in the Atlantic. Probably he doesn't know how large the ocean is, and neither do you, but he realizes it's somewhere. And what does he do, I ask you? He sits down in it. Duck meditation. He reposes in the immediate as if it were infinity, which it is. That is religion, and the duck has it. How about you? Duck meditation. So I like the wisdom in that the given of our situation is that there are continual waves that we encounter. And if there's such a thing as choice, we can either fight them, in some way judge them, not like them, feel oppressed by them, or we can sit down in them. We can open to what is with a quality of grace and a quality of presence. So when we talk about equanimity and think of it in terms of our body and our nervous system, just like love and joy, it's our natural state to be in equanimity when we're at rest. When we're not carried away by fight, flight, or freeze, that is our natural state. And it correlates to the parasympathetic nervous system. There's a kind of a replenishment that's going on. It's restorative. And the brain waves correspond to a relaxed, open focus. The brain is not in a kind of narrow, tense, fixated place of trying to get somewhere or defend or achieve. There's an openness. But there's a lot of misunderstandings about the state of equanimity. I think the biggest one is that it's in some form a kind of passivity, which it's not at all. It's not being resigned. It's not being dead or unresponsive. I remember at one point seeing a little quip that a coach was working with one of his players who had pretty much flunked everything academically, and he asked him, "What is it with you, son? Is it apathy or indifference?" And the response was, "I don't know and I don't care." So it's not a withdrawal. Equanimity is not a withdrawal, because that's subtle aversion. It's not any withdrawal from social activism. In fact, I consider equanimity as the ground of all effective transformation. We can look at the spiritual leaders that have inspired so many of us, whether it's Dalai Lama, who was just here recently, Aung San Suu Kyi, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. I think of Nelson Mandela because when you think of him being jailed for 2+ decades and not reacting to his jailers, in fact, befriending them, stepping beyond anger and vengeance to this place where he could actually lead the country from apartheid, from all this hatred, to the beginnings of a multiracial democracy. That is equanimity in service of freedom. His non-reactivity, that he had a vaster view than an ego that had to react to his particular circumstances. The essence of equanimity is when our identity is not confined to a sense of separate egoic self. So this is a big thing, and it's a deep thing. In other words, equanimity is not easy because most of our living moments, we have a narrative about a self who's encountering something that's going to be difficult, or who's trying to prove something, or has been offended. And if we're living inside that idea of who we are, we're not going to feel equanimity. So equanimity arises in the moments that in some way we've woken up out of that confined identity and we sense a larger belonging to the Atlantic, to the world, to each other, to the earth. There's a lot of ways to feel that enlarged identity. But our predicament is this, that we are designed to have strong conditioning to feel separate and to be reactive. And we're designed to have a very active limbic system. And what that means is that every day, if we really watch closely, our day is filled with pleasantness and unpleasantness, and we're constantly on some level going after more comfort and pleasure, and some way tensing against what we're afraid of. And we do it in ways through our planning and our worrying, and we do it in the moments of just flinching, of the ways we constantly readjust how we're sitting or moving. An illustration of this. This is a man that's responding to a request for information on an insurance form, and I think this shows a lot about our way of being in the world. He says, in response to your request for information in block 3 of the accident form, I put in poor planning as the cause of my accident. You said I should explain more fully. I trust the following will be sufficient. I'm a bricklayer by trade. On the day of the accident, I was working alone on the roof of a 6-story building. When I completed my work, I discovered I had 500 pounds of brick left. Rather than carry them down by hand, I decided to lower them in a barrel attached to the side of the building. Securing the rope at ground level, I went up to the roof, swung the barrel out, and loaded the brick onto it. Then I went back to the ground and untied the rope, holding it tightly to ensure a slow descent of the 500 pounds of bricks. You can visualize this, right? You will note in block number 11 of the form that I weigh 135 pounds. Due to my surprise at being jerked off the ground so suddenly, I lost my presence of mind and forgot to let go of the rope. Needless to say, I proceeded at a rapid rate up the side of the building. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I met the barrel coming down. This explains the fractured skull. Slowing slightly, I continued my ascent, stopping when the fingers of my right hand were 2 knuckles deep in the pulley. Fortunately, by this time I'd regained my presence of mind, was able to hold tightly to the rope in spite of my pain. At approximately the same time, however, the barrel of bricks hit the ground and the bottom fell out of the barrel. Devoid of the weight of the bricks, the barrel now weighed approximately 50 pounds. I refer you again to my weight in block number 11. As you might imagine, I began a rapid descent down the side of the building. In the vicinity of the 3rd floor, I again met the barrel coming up. This accounts for the fractured ankle. The encounter with the barrel slowed me enough to lessen my injuries when I fell onto the bricks. Fortunately, only my toes were cracked. I'm sorry to report, however, that as I lay there on the bricks in pain and unable to stand and watched the empty barrel 6 stories above me, I again lost my presence of mind and let go of the rope. This is reactivity. So it's a great story, and we do this in small ways through the day. We forget the bigger picture, and we're in immediate reactivity. So a huge part of practice on the spiritual path is when we get caught up in the waves, how do we regain a sense of presence? And I'm sure each one of you can think of a situation today or in the last few days where you got reactive and behaved in ways you wished you hadn't, or at least internally proliferated in ways you wished you maybe didn't, right? How do we find our balance again? Because those are moments that rather than being in that quality of presence where we can respond with care and intelligence, those are moments when we're in trance.